Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is Unusual Daily Life, History for Sleep, where each week we invite you to step gently into the past, not through the lens of kings or battles, but through the quiet rituals of everyday people. If you find this kind of calm storytelling comforting, we gently invite you to subscribe. A new story arrives here each week, always slow, immersive, and designed to help you rest. Tonight, we travel back in time to the stone halls of a medieval castle somewhere in the English countryside. It is the early 14th century. The year is 1310. Outside, the morning is cool, and mist clings to the thatch and stone. Inside, a fire stirs to life in the vast kitchen hearth. You are a castle cook, neither servant nor noble, but something in between, respected for your skills, trusted with the meals of lords, ladies, guards, and stewards alike. This is your day. Long, smoky, and full of careful hands, wooden spoons, and bubbling pots. Let's begin, as always, in the early morning. You rise before the sun. The sky beyond the narrow kitchen windows is still dark, pale only at the edges. You move quietly through the chill stone corridors of the lower hall, your leather shoes soft against the flagstones, your breath visible in the air. The kitchen is quiet at first, but not still. The embers from last night's fire glow faintly in the great hearth, a low, pulsing orange. You kneel beside it, feeding it splinters of birch and small twists of straw soaked in tallow. The kindling hisses gently as it catches, and the familiar warmth begins to rise. The hearth is the heart of this room, a vast open fireplace tall enough for you to stand inside. Blackened iron cauldrons hang from its arms, and racks of soot-dusted kettles rest nearby, each shaped by years of careful use. A copper pot catches the glow, and the room slowly turns from shadows to amber. You begin your morning tasks with the same rhythm you've known for years. Outside, the castle grounds are still and cool. A few guards pace the parapets. The air smells of damp earth, stone, and smoke. You lower the bucket into the well with a creaking rope and draw up the morning's first measure. This water will be used for washing hands, preparing grains, scalding herbs, softening beans. It's one of a dozen quiet preparations that unfold before a single breakfast is served. Next, you check the pantry. The castle's pantry is a dark, cool room tucked beside the kitchen wall, lined with shelves of root vegetables, sacks of flour and oats, earthen jars of honey, and rough linen bundles of dried herbs. This time of year, early spring, the stores are lean. The turnips are shriveled, the carrots soft and speckled. There are still cabbages, kept cool in the root cellar, and onions braided in hanging ropes. You make note of them mentally. They'll appear in today's pottage, as they often do. You select a loaf of yesterday's rye bread, hard and dense. With it, a crock of slightly sour goat cheese, and a few preserved apples, leathery but sweet. This will be your own breakfast, shared briefly with the scullions, once the work begins. There's no time to sit yet. You gather the morning crew. 3 kitchen boys shuffle in to stoke the smaller side ovens and fetch more wood from the stacks outside. The youngest scullery maid begins scrubbing the serving platters, her sleeves rolled up, arms red from the cold water. You greet them with a quiet nod. Words are few in these early hours. The smell of wood smoke fills the space, mingling with the aroma of warming porridge and rising dough. You need the first batch of bread on a wide wooden table. Flour dusting your hands, the rhythm steady and meditative. The flour is coarse, a mix of wheat and barley. The dough is simple but hearty, designed to feed many. Soon, the castle steward will descend to speak of the day's meals. You'll be expected to feed not only the lord and his family, but the garrison of guards, the household staff, and any travelers or guests who've arrived during the night. On feast days, that number can double, but for now, there is only quiet labor. The sharpening of knives, the lighting of lanterns, the scent of sage and marjoram as you crush herbs between your palms. As dawn breaks through the narrow slits of the stone walls, light begins to dance on the kitchen's copper lids and polished ladles. The castle is beginning to stir above you, faint footsteps on wooden floors, the clang of armor being lifted from its rack. You take a moment to sip warm ale, thinned with water and flavored with honey, and chew a bite of bread. It's dry, but satisfying. You share a few bites with the kitchen cat, who has padded in, silent as shadow, curling near the hearth. Another day has begun. Soon, the rush will come. Trays to be loaded, meats to be spitted, broth to be skimmed and stirred. But for now, you finish your morning tasks with calm precision. Every step guided by years of knowing, by touch, by smell, by sound. Outside, the bell in the chapel tower begins to ring. It is time for breakfast in the great hall, and time for you to prepare it. The castle is awake now. Above the kitchen, the great hall buzzes with motion. Pages carry messages, guards shift post at the doors, and a maid sweeps the stone stairwell with even strokes. But down here, in the warm, fragrant depths of the kitchen, the heart of the day has begun. The steward arrives first. He enters with his usual briskness, a parchment in hand, his boots still damp from the dew-covered paths. He gives you today's list, a roster of mouths to feed, from the Lord's table to the stable boys, and quietly discusses the midday plan. Today is no feast day, but even an ordinary meal in this castle requires careful attention. You'll prepare 2 courses for the noble table, modest by their standards, but still refined. A thick fish stew with barley and leeks, followed by roasted fowl with mustard seed sauce. The fish, smoked and caught 3 days past, lies waiting in a woven basket beside the hearth. The birds were plucked at dawn and now hang nearby, their legs tied with twine. For the guards and servants, simpler fare, pottage thickened with rye, boiled beans, and whatever vegetables remain in season. A bit of salted pork will flavor the pot. Nothing is wasted. Even the bones will be used later for broth. You give the orders calmly. One of the kitchen lads begins to chop onions, slowly and carefully with a blade you sharpened yourself this morning. Another grinds grain with a stone quern near the pantry wall, the circular motion steady and rhythmic. A scullion peels turnips in silence, dropping them into a large bucket beside her bare feet. A low fire boils the morning's first cauldron of broth. You move among them with quiet assurance. This kitchen is your domain, and you know each part of it intimately. The way the left oven drafts better than the right, the shelf where the flour stays driest. You pause to skim the surface of the fish pot. A layer of foam has begun to rise. You remove it with a wide wooden ladle and add a handful of chopped sage, letting it fall into the broth like confetti. The scent is heady and warm, briny fish, sweet onion, sharp herbs. Near the fire, the birds are spitted and turned by hand. They roast slowly over red coals, skin crisping, juices dripping into a wide tray below. You baste them with a brush made from tied twigs and goose feathers, dipping it into a pot of vinegar, mustard seed, and crushed garlic. There is no clock here, only the rhythm of the work. The sun has risen fully now. Through the small, smoke-darkened window, you can see a patch of sky and a distant stretch of green fields. Crows pass lazily overhead, their wings casting shadows on the flagstones. A boy enters the kitchen, panting, his tunic loose and muddy. He brings a bundle of herbs from the outer garden, parsley, thyme, and a precious few leaves of mint. You thank him and set the herbs aside for steeping into a mild tea, meant for the steward who has taken ill with a cough. There is kindness, even in the kitchen. A platter of cheese is unwrapped from linen, soft white curds and firmer rounds rubbed in ash. You arrange them carefully alongside a plate of sliced pears. These will serve as the final dish for the noble table. No sugar, too dear this month, but a drizzle of thickened honey will sweeten the fruit. The bells ring again. Not the chapel bells, but the small brass bell rung by the page at the top of the stairs. It's time to serve. With quiet hands and strong arms, you and 2 assistants carry the platters through the side corridor to the great hall. The wooden doors are propped open, and beyond them, the lord and lady sit at a raised dais, their long tables spread with linen and polished pewter. You do not speak to them. You do not make eye contact. Instead, you bow your head slightly and place each dish in its appointed place. A steward oversees the setting. The lord does not glance your way, but you see the lady nod approvingly at the scent of roast fowl. That is enough. Back in the kitchen, the scullery team scrapes the bottom of the pottage pot into wooden bowls. The guards arrive in shifts, dusty, armored, hungry. They eat standing or seated on low stools. Bread is passed, ale is poured. You take a moment to eat, a simple bowl of stew, still warm. You sit on a stone bench near the wall, the kitchen cat brushing against your leg. A moment of stillness in the middle of the day. Steam still rises from the pots. The hearth crackles low. Somewhere, a lute plays faintly in another room. But here in the kitchen, you let the moment stretch. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and prepare for the rest of the day's work. There is always more to do. The sun has begun to fall behind the hills, casting long golden shadows across the castle courtyard. In the kitchen, the light turns warm and amber, flickering against the walls as the hearth fire grows once more. Evening is the most delicate time of day here, not for its quiet, but for its complexity. The noble supper must be more refined than the midday meal, though the ingredients are humble, for this is not a feast day. The flavors must still reflect the dignity of the household. Texture, color, and fragrance matter just as much as nourishment. A misplaced seasoning or poorly arranged platter could draw a raised eyebrow, or worse, a whispered comment from the ladies' handmaidens. You begin, as always, by wiping down the main table. It's been dusted with flour and vegetable peels from the afternoon work, and its oak surface is well worn, smoothed by generations of chopping and kneading. Tonight's courses will be lighter. First, a dish of poached eggs over warmed leeks, garnished with wild sorrel. Then, a savory custard baked in a clay dish, a mixture of eggs, soft cheese, parsley, and a touch of nutmeg from the spice stores. Spices are precious and used sparingly, but the steward has granted you a small measure for this purpose. As the eggs poach, you stand watch over them, not boiling, not simmering, but barely trembling in a pan of warmed water. You lower them in with a carved wooden spoon, careful not to disturb the whites. Beside you, one of the older kitchen boys, Thomas, perhaps 15, prepares the custard base. You guide him gently, beat it slowly, let the cheese fold in, not too fast. His brow furrows with concentration, but he's learning, and someday, perhaps, he will take your place, while the dishes bake in the smaller oven. You step briefly into the herb alcove, a small nook where daylight once filtered through a glassless window. Dried rosemary, thyme and bay hang in bunches overhead. You crush a few leaves between your fingers, breathing in the soft, bitter perfume, before carrying them back to sprinkle over the stew still warming on the side hearth. That stew, thicker now, reduced for hours, will be supper for the staff. Once the noble plates are arranged, you send them up by hand, carried in silence through the narrow stairwell by trusted assistants. You do not serve them yourself. That task falls to the steward and his pages. When they return, the platters are not empty, not quite. There are scraps, crusts of bread untouched, bits of egg yolk, a spoonful of custard left behind. These are placed in a separate bowl, not for the servants, but for the poor who gather near the outer gates come morning. It is a quiet rule of the castle. The kitchen feeds not just those within the walls, but those who wait outside them. As the evening cools, the kitchen turns inward. The noble meal is finished. You ladle the stew into wide wooden bowls for your crew. Each person gets a spoonful of thick pottage and a slice of rye bread. There is no ale left tonight, only watered vinegar or cold well water, but the meal is filling and warm and honest. You eat in good company. The scullery girl jokes quietly with the youngest boy. Thomas hums as he eats, not realizing it. The kitchen cat, now bold, curls in the corner beneath the table. No one speaks loudly. When the food is finished, the bowls are rinsed and set to dry. A few coals are pushed aside for warmth, but the rest of the fire is left to fade. The great cauldrons are emptied, the ovens cool. You'll wash your hands with warm water and ash soap. The dirt and grease of the day run from your skin in thin grey ribbons. As darkness deepens, you sweep the floors. Then you check the pantry one last time, ensuring the cheese is covered, the flour sealed, the herbs tied. A rat could undo a day's work, and you know better than to tempt one. In the last light of the fire, you take a moment to sit on the bench near the hearth. The heat soaks into your bones. Your back aches, but your heart is calm. You've fed nearly 50 souls today, some with care, some with craft, some with quiet charity. And now, the castle sleeps. The castle has gone quiet. Above you, in the great hall and the upper chambers, candles are being snuffed out one by one. Doors are drawn shut. Hushed voices retreat behind wooden beams and tapestries. The fires are low, the air still. Down here in the kitchen, only the soft hiss of cooling iron and the last occasional crack of embers remains. You move slowly now, not from fatigue alone, but from ritual. There is a rhythm to this hour, just as much as to the ones before. A slow undoing of the day. You sweep the last of the flour into a neat pile with a bundle of broom twigs. Crumbs are brushed from the corners, ashes gathered into the scuttle. The hearth is raked. The cauldrons, scrubbed and inverted to dry, rest quietly on their racks. The scent of the day lingers. A trace of garlic, of roast bird, of boiled root vegetables. But over it now, stronger, is the smell of ash and soap and stone. The clean smells of a kitchen put to rest. The last duty before sleep is the ledger. You sit briefly on the wooden stool by the pantry shelf, a stub of charcoal in one hand and the rough parchment book open before you. Your notes are simple, but important. You record what was used: 2 dozen eggs, 1 wheel of goat cheese, 3 lengths of dried pork, 2 sacks of barley, a pinch of nutmeg, 1 bundle of leeks, half a wheel of rye. You mark what remains. You list what must be requested. You make a note to mend the strap on the smaller cauldron and to instruct Thomas to watch the poaching fire more carefully next time. Then, you close the book. Outside, the air is colder now. Through the open slit of the kitchen's high window, you see the stars, clear and scattered, like a dusting of grain across the black sky. You stretch your back. Slowly, a long exhale. The scullery maid has already gone to her pallet. One of the younger boys sleeps curled near the kitchen side wall, wrapped in a coarse blanket. The cat has vanished, perhaps to the buttery or the hayloft. You add 1 last log to the hearth, not to stoke it, only to keep it breathing through the night, a soft core of warmth to greet you again come morning. You wash your hands a final time in the basin near the back wall. The water is cold now, but clear. Your hands are rough, scarred, capable. And then, at last, you step into the passage behind the kitchen, a short, narrow corridor that leads to your quarters. A modest room, bare floor, straw-stuffed bedding, a simple chest for your few possessions. You sit. You remove your boots. The hush of the stone around you is absolute. You lie down, pulling the blanket to your shoulders. And for a moment, in the silence, you think of nothing. Not spices, not scraps, not lists. Just the echo of the fire, the soft creak of timber above you, and the rhythm of your own breath. You close your eyes. Tomorrow will come early. The hearth will need tending. The bread must rise. But for now, the castle sleeps, and so do you.